West UP's Rampur and Central UP's Kanpur today saw major violence over the citizenship law. In Kanpur, things are still tense and the violence has taken place in an area called Chamanganj. Today around 4 p.m, people came out of their homes to protest the citizenship law. They tried to march on the roads. The police refused to let them do it, and that led to a confrontation. The police had to lathi charge to control the mob, but in turn got pelted with stones. Then a shop and a police post was set on fire. Meanwhile, the Eidgah area of Rampur saw major stone pelting by mobs and a lathi charge and tear gas by the police in retaliation for the violence which had lasted for over an hour. Things are under control but clearly tense. Reports say one person has died in the clashes. The police have not confirmed this as yet. Well, the death toll in the Friday violence that shook many parts of Uttar Pradesh over the citizenship law protests has now reached 15. That number could rise. There were violent protests, as we mentioned, in Rampur. The police claim they are cracking down across UP on those who indulged in vandalism. But the big question is this: are they also going after soft targets?
Why have over 10 people died in anti-citizenship law protests across UP in the last 24 hours? Reports say most of those who have died had gunshot injuries. Not our bullets, claims the state's top cop in an interview to NDTV.
किसी भी जगह हमने पुलिस फायरिंग नहीं की, हमने किसी को फायरिंग का आदेश नहीं दिया। ये सारी घटनाएं जो हैं प्रदर्शनकारियों के आपसी क्रॉस फायरिंग में हुई है और ये बातें स्पष्ट हो जाएंगी, पोस्टमार्टम होगा, स्पष्ट हो जाएंगी।
On Saturday, the worst clashes were in West UP's Rampur town, where the Eidgah area saw major stone pelting by mobs and lathi charge and tear gas by the cops in retaliation. The violence lasted for over an hour. The situation is tense but under control.
सारे तहसील मुख्यालयों पर इन लोगों ने कॉल दिया था और डिस्ट्रिक्ट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन की तरफ से डीएम और एसपी साहब ने सारे रिलीजियस गुरुज से निवेदन किया था। लोगों ने स्व मोटो वहाँ पे इकट्ठा हुए 4 तहसीलों में ज्ञापन दे करके उनका कार्यक्रम समाप्त हुआ। यहाँ पर कुछ अराजक तत्व जो इसमें सम्मिलित थे उन लोगों ने फिगर ऑफ किया, पत्थरबाजी किया और उससे फिजा दे दी।
The worst affected areas in all this violence are in the western half of the state, in particular Meerut, where there have been 4 deaths on Friday, the largest for one area. Mobile internet is also shut in most parts of western Uttar Pradesh, and even broadband has been switched off in many areas. Across Uttar Pradesh, the police carried out flag marches, registered hundreds of FIRs, and detained or arrested over 1,000 people for the violence. Lucknow's police chief said his cops are on an arresting mission. Among those arrested in these images, he retweeted Mohammad Shoaib, a 70-year-old human rights lawyer with a stellar record, and Deepak Kabir, a celebrated theatre artist.
लेकिन किसी भी निर्दोष व्यक्ति को हम गिरफ्तार नहीं करेंगे.
But journalist Omar Rashid with the Hindu newspaper was detained on Friday night, shuttled between police stations, accused of inciting violence, abused with alleged communal slurs, and then let off after what the cops said was a misunderstanding. Did you ask them why they were doing this despite the fact that you were a journalist?
Yes, I did that, and they used expletives to put it down, and they said that, you can keep your journalism elsewhere, we don't care about it.
With bureau inputs and camera person Rajesh Gupta, this is Alok Pandey, NDTV.
There is no let-up in the protests against the citizenship law. Citizen groups are continuing to come out in large numbers across India, from Delhi to Bihar and Bengal, from Assam to Telangana, Chennai to Kerala. Most of these protests have fortunately been peaceful by and large, but as we've been mentioning, there have been quite a few incidents, serious ones, of violence in parts of Uttar Pradesh, primarily in western parts of the state, areas like Rampur. And then there were different kinds of protests. In Assam, thousands of women participated in protests against the act. Many of them were wearing their traditional mekhela chador, their foreheads wrapped with the Ohmiya gamcha, a symbol of Assamese pride.
हम लोग का मुला का बोलो इतिहास दोहराते हैं ना, कहाँ हम लोग तो नहीं मानूंगी, ये तो हम लोगों का पूरा डिसीजन है, हम लोग नहीं मानूंगी, कहाँ हम लोगों को नहीं चाहिए।
Women power on full display in Assam from Guwahati to Jorhat, Golaghat and across the Brahmaputra Valley region. Thousands of women draped in their traditional mekhla chadar, their foreheads wrapped with the Asomia Gomasa, the symbol of Assamese pride, agitated against the controversial Citizenship Amendment Act.
वो असम का जो भाषा संस्कृति है, असम का जाति है, असम का एवरीथिंग वो खराब कर देगा। किसी असम वासियों को का नहीं चाहिए। हम लोग कैब का विरोध किया था, लेकिन गवर्नमेंट हम लोग का बात नहीं सुना।
हमारे शांति लगे, हमारे बीजेपी ना लगे, हमारे राज्य सरकार भी ना लगे, हमारे सब शांति लगे, नতুन सरकार लगे, हमारे ना लगे। माने কথা
शांति কেনেকৈ আহিব পাৰিব?
শান্তি কেনেকৈ আহিব লাগিব, বিদেশী নাহিব লাগিব, এইবোৰ চৰকাৰক মানিব নালাগিব, নিজৰ আমাৰ অসমখন আমাৰ লাগিব।
While today's statewide protests were exclusively by women, for the past 1 year, women have been at the forefront of the protests that have singed Assam. Assam last saw such scenes in the 80s during the 6 years of the Assam agitation that had culminated in the Assam Accord of 1985. Assamese Grannies says the situation now is even worse.
সেইদিনৰ লগত আজি সিচুৱেশ্যন মুঠেই নিমিলে। আজি যিটো সিচুৱেশ্যন হৈছে নহয়, এইটো সিচুৱেশ্যন বুজাব নোৱাৰা সিচুৱেশ্যন।
সতী সাধনীৰ অৱদান আমি সকলোৱে জানো। চুতীয়া সম্প্ৰদায়ৰ নহয়, আমাৰ জাতিটোৰ এগৰাকী তেখেত পাত স্মৰণীয় বীৰাংগনা আছিল। তেখেতৰ পুণ্য জন্ম যিটো দিন ৭ বহাগ, সেইটো এই বছৰৰ পৰা কাৰ্যকৰী হোৱাকৈ অসম চৰকাৰে ৰাজ্যিক বন্ধ হিচাপে ঘোষণা কৰাৰ সিদ্ধান্ত লৈছে। A new university will be established in Golaghat district, যাৰ নাম হ'ব সতী সাধনী ৰাজ্যিক বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়।
And even in those days, women had played a major role in the agitation, and today they are once again ready to take the lead in this agitation through this statewide protest exclusively done by women groups. In Guwahati, with camera person Sanjay Chakravarti, Ratnadeep Chaudhary, for NDTV.
Thousands of women protesting over there in Assam. Fortunately, peaceful protests today in the state. Elsewhere, parts of UP, as we've mentioned, things getting completely out of hand. We're discussing the situation in Uttar Pradesh today. Remember that there have been 15 deaths so far over the last couple of days. Why is this happening in Uttar Pradesh? What about reports of extreme police brutality? What about the shooting deaths? Who has shot who is the big question, because the police are denying that they fired themselves on the protesters. Joining us to look at this, the former Director General of Police of Uttar Pradesh, Vikram Singh, Sudhindra Bhadoria of the BSP, Sanjeev Tiwari, somebody close to the BJP. Thanks very much for being with us. Mr. Tiwari, let me come to you first. The Director General of Police and others have said that the large number of deaths which have taken place are from shooting deaths, but they say they haven't shot. If they haven't shot, who has?
See, some unsocial elements are everywhere, and you see the protest on the streets even in Delhi, in Jamia University, or even in Daryaganj. When the protests they were peaceful, some unsocial elements, they intruded into those protests, and they instigated not only the masses, but also they tried to start the violence in the different form,
no,
like
but Mr.
burning
Tiwari, who shot?
That is the issue, because the petrol pump was seized 2 days back even in Delhi.
No, but in Delhi there is now video which suggests that the police did in fact fire. There is video which has emerged on the basis of which the Delhi police is doing an investigation suggesting that the police did in fact fire.
Vishnu, there are two views. Number one, the videos which you are having. Number two, the statement of the highest police officer of the state. We have
the statement of the highest police officer was before this video was released.
Yeah.
The statement of the highest police officer was before this video was released.
But once the video is released, then he has to investigate, and the entire state has to investigate.
So let's not assume that the video is fake. Anyway, let's talk about UP. Yes.
Yeah, as far as the law and order is concerned, basically it's the matter of the state which take care law and order of the state. And if the mob is there and that mob is uncontrolled and the violence is taking place, then it's the duty of the police to take care of those unsocial elements, to corner them, to arrest them, to put them behind the bar.
No, but that doesn't answer
and that is
my
what
question.
happened. That is what happened in
If the
Uttar Pradesh in
police have
last
not
2 days.
fired, who has? So you say unsocial elements, okay?
Yeah, of course.
Let me put that across.
And there could be possibility that the police could
Right.
also
So
be
the
fired.
protesters fired on each
I'm not
other.
denying it, but there is need
The
to
protesters
investigate.
fired on each other? Is that what you're suggesting?
See, yesterday what happened, one of the petrol bomb, and when it was about to be thrown by one of the protesters, it was in the Silampur day before yesterday, his hand was burned because
Yes,
he
I saw
couldn't
that.
throw it out. You
Yes,
must
I
have
did see
seen
that.
it. There is
And
a wide
nothing
coverage in the
suggests that
newspaper.
violence from any
and that
party
is why I'm talking
is unacceptable. All right, let me just go across to Sudhindra Bhadoria as well. Mr. Bhadoria, this one point of the police that they have not fired at all, is that something that you're willing to accept? How about the argument that there are elements which have crept into these protests and that people are being instigated to act? Because there are many strong assertions of this, not just in Delhi but in UP as well.
Well, let me put this whole issue in a holistic manner. We have seen that over 1 week or last 10 days, there have been incidents of violence. While the temperature, the country, the weather temperature is dipping, the political temperatures and the temperature of the people at large is rising. There is heat across the country today, whether it is the North India or the South India, Delhi to Mangalore, Gujarat to Bengal and Assam. You see the entire country is facing heat, and I think it should concern everybody, more particularly those who are running the nation. We have seen that scores of people, dozens of people have died in the last few days. I think it's a very serious issue, and the whole nation is passing through a very critical phase in its history. Now, coming to the main issue at hand, I think the issue is that there are people in this country who feel that they are being singled out, particularly the marginalized sections of the Indian society, the impoverished sections of the Indian society who live around poverty line and who face hunger and employment.
Okay, so Mr.
each
Bhadoria,
day.
you're talking about
They
the
are
larger
ones
issues. You're talking about members of the Muslim community who feel that they are being relegated to a second-class status. This has been spoken about in light of the Citizenship Amendment Act. Be that as it may, I'll come back to you in a moment. I want to go across to the former DGP, Mr. Vikram Singh. Mr. Vikram Singh, the police faces a very, very difficult situation one way or the other. They're dealing with very violent mobs. 1 second, sir. Mr. Bhadoria, you didn't really directly answer my question. You're making the larger political point, which is very important. I'll come back to you. I just want to try and understand from a law and order standpoint. Mr. Singh, the police faces an incredibly difficult job. But is it perhaps disingenuous to say that, look, there was no shooting which took place, there was firing from within, number one. And number two, sir, the videos which exist and several reports of extreme police brutality in Uttar Pradesh. The fact that there are a lot of people with head injuries, that there are protesters on the ground being clobbered absolutely by the police. Is this the way policing is meant to be done?
Mr. Shroff, the answer to the last point is no. You have to be very professional, and there's an elaborate anti-riot drill in which you scale up the use of force under the guidance of a senior police officer. There is merit in what Mr. Sanjeev Tiwari says, that often, not always, once in a while, that there are casualties in cross-firing of people who are not accustomed to using country-made firearms. Country-made firearms burst in their own hands. Country-made firearms do not have a trajectory. One aims at A and the bullet hits B. But the thing to be investigated is, have all the 15 deaths happened because of cross-firing? That is a little difficult to understand or believe. My advice to Mr. O.P. Singh would be to investigate all the cases, extricate all the bullets from the dead bodies. If they are country-made weapons, the bullet would be lodged in the bodies because they are not solid bullets of police weapons. They would go across. But if in the post-mortem the bullet are lodged in the bodies, it can easily be identified that they are country-made weapons. Then it's a very sorry state of reflection that people manage to carry country-made weapons in the agitations. What kind of surveillance and advanced intelligence did you have? Number three, I am not prepared to believe for a moment that all these deaths are due to cross firings unless the autopsy, the post-mortem and the investigation proves, and there are actual arrests of those who purportedly fired. If you had a videography, in such situations, police has their own videographers who photograph every single event and the use of force. But the use of force cannot be vindictive, it cannot be malicious, it cannot be with a sense to reduce the person on the other side into pulp. That is not done. It is surgical. And if it is not surgical, if it is vindictive, if, as you say, that a person is clobbered, I don't think it is right. There has to be, after every use of force, there is a provision of a ministerial inquiry and an investigation. I do hope if a person has used excessive and disproportionate force, he is taken to task after due identification and care. But this is just not acceptable. Wanton use of disproportionate force is not acceptable at all, because it does not answer a question, it creates 10 more problems for us.
Yeah, and in many cases, Mr. Singh, also a lot of injuries to the head. I'm not talking about injuries through firearms, but injuries to the head. In so many cases, this has been widely reported in Delhi as well. But I just want to go back to another point. I wanted to go back to Mr. Tiwari. In all of this, do you believe that more needs to be done by the state government to reach out to all of these people who are protesting in a fair number of parts of Uttar Pradesh, that is something which has not happened earlier on enough? That you can say at one level that, look, you are not reading the CAA correctly, there is misinformation which is going on, but what about the effort of the state government in reaching out to people who are feeling upset now?
You are quite right, Vishnu. As far as the CAA is concerned, a lot of rumor are there, a lot of misconception is there, a lot of misinformation is there. And not only it's the duty of the state government, but also it's the duty of the central government to reach out to the people through the media, through the newspapers, through the what you call religious gurus of the different religion who are coming out in the large scale to protest, because they are afraid that this CAA will take away their citizenship, and that is the rumor all around, not only in Uttar Pradesh but also in the other parts of the country. As far as the CAA is concerned, it was quite good to see the women's in the Assam, that the way in which they were peacefully agitating against the CAA. But you see the other parts of the country, almost in every part of the country, the police lathi charge is there, the violence is there, and I think that it's the high time for both the central...
The police lathi charge is almost always in those states ruled by the BJP, that is, except Delhi, where the police comes under the center.
Yeah, Vishnu, the issue is that...
peaceful protests.
Yeah, some of the states
in Maharashtra...
Yeah, in Maharashtra, in MP, in Rajasthan, in Punjab, there are no protests. And that is why a big question mark is there, that who is instigating this all violence, this all protest. That is the 100 billion question I would like to ask you from you as a journalist.
So who is doing it?
Why not these protests are taking
Mr.
place
Tiwari,
in those
who is
states?
doing it?
I think that opposition is basically...
Is the opposition strong enough to infiltrate into these groups in so many parts and get them into violence in this manner, where people are dying mysteriously of shooting deaths?
No,
is the opposition in any state strong enough to be doing this?
Of course. I am saying you that rumors are strong enough to mislead the masses, to misguide the people, that go all out against the government. And that is why these violence are taking place.
Okay, I want to go across to Mr. Bhadoria, sir. You know, the entire issue of rumors, the way the police deals with that is by switching off the internet, broadband. So mobile internet and broadband is off in many parts of Uttar Pradesh. In fact, off even in parts of the national capital, off and on. But is this necessarily the way in which you deal with the situation? You switch off something as basic as the internet.
I think the need of the hour is to initiate a dialogue. I think the Prime Minister should have taken a lead, called all opposition parties and other senior citizens who matter today in the country. Rather, we are seeing that journalists, media people, intellectuals, many of them are being mishandled, manhandled.
Sorry, just that line seems to have gone over there.
Provide security to the people.
Go ahead, Mr.
And
Bhadoria,
all sections of the society. Yeah, and all sections of the society. But what we are seeing today is, and I want to also reiterate some points which have been raised by former DGP in Uttar Pradesh, Shri Vikram Singh ji, that why is it, there is a pattern in all this. There are some agent provocateurs. Why is it happening only in a particular state which is ruled by a political party? There are demonstrations which are a democratic right of the people. They are doing it. It happens peacefully. But when agent provocateurs get into those particular states where they are in power, what is their intelligence system doing?
Okay.
What is their police system doing?
All right.
And why is it happening? I have a serious question for those people who are running the country, that instead of trying to cool down, they are trying to fan certain things, which is taking this whole country into a direction.
And I think, sir, I think, Mr. Bhadoria, it's the way in which you reach out to people in a situation like this, the language which you use and the tone which you use, which is so very important. Yogi Adityanath, a couple of days back, spoke about Badla. He was speaking in a context where he said there would be revenge for those who'd lost their property, for public property which was destroyed. But in a situation like this, does that language actually serve to make things worse than try and improve the situation? Why talk about revenge in a situation when there is so much tension? Let's listen to what he said.
उत्तर प्रदेश में इस प्रकार के तत्वों के साथ हम सख्ती से निपटेंगे। मैंने इसके बारे में अभी एक बड़ी बैठक बुलाई है और मैं इस चीज को स्वयं समीक्षा कर रहा हूं, मैं स्वयं देख रहा हूं, और जो भी जिम्मेदार होगा उसकी जवाबदेही भी तय करेंगे। इस हिंसा में लिप्त प्रत्येक तत्व की प्रॉपर्टी को जब्त करेंगे और उस जब्त से सार्वजनिक संपत्ति को हुए नुकसान या कहीं पर पब्लिक प्रॉपर्टी को जो डैमेज किया गया है, इसकी भरपाई भी हम उन सभी उपद्रवियों से करेंगे, क्योंकि वे सब चिन्हित चेहरे हैं, वे सब वीडियोग्राफी में आ चुके हैं, सीसीटीवी के फुटेज में आ चुके हैं। इन सब की प्रॉपर्टी को जब्त करके इनसे हम इसका बदला लेंगे और सख्ती से निपटने के लिए इसके बारे में मैंने कहा है।
One more question to Mr. Tiwari. The journalist from the Hindu, Omar, who was brutally, he wasn't beaten up in that sense, but he was taken into custody, he was detained, horrible things were said about him. Is this the way that the media are treated by the police, law enforcement in a situation like this? For what? Doing his job? He was sitting and writing something with somebody else. The man with him was brutally apparently beaten up. He was detained. It had to be sorted out before he was taken out. Why beat up the media? Why abuse the media? Why take them into custody for doing their jobs?
Definitely not, Vishnu. I agree with that the way the Omar Rasid, he was taken away by the police and he was detained, it was very condemnable. But as far as the media is concerned, even the masses, they are beating the medias. And even the crowd, the protesting crowd, they are not allowing the electronic media to take the proper coverage. And that is why I would like to say that it's not only the state, but also the agitating masses who are uncontrolled and the unsocial elements who are trying to abuse the media by one way or other. And that is why I think that as far as the media is concerned, the state should maintain a restraint on their forces as far as the media and the other intelligentsia is concerned. They are having their democratic right to protect the, protect
right.
and preserve the, democratic
Okay, I just
rights
wanted to
of
get
the
a quick last comment from Mr. Singh. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Sanjeev, my advice to you would be that this is indeed an aberration in the police conduct, and this needs to be inquired immediately and expeditious action taken against the delinquent police officials. Obviously, there's something horribly went wrong, that they picked up this journalist, Mr. Umar, and roughed him up. It was totally uncalled for and best avoided. And also, as far as use of force is concerned, it has to be as per the norms prescribed by the anti-riot drill and also the rule of law. It cannot be whimsical, it cannot be knee-jerk, and obviously it cannot be vindictive. I do hope that Mr. O.P. Singh is listening to me, and he would ensure that this clobbering and even the lathi blows are aimed below the knee, not even below the waist. It is always below the knee. I do hope that the lathi drill is revised yet once again, and videography is done at all places where police resort to use of force.
All right, well, I'd like to thank all of you very much for joining us to reflect on a very sad situation across the country, a great deal of violence, but reflecting perhaps the mood of so many communities, so many people in parts of the country, across the country. Yesterday, day before, there were protests in more than 15 cities. The violence continues in some places elsewhere. The protests against the Citizenship Amendment Act are peaceful. Out of time. Thank you very much for being with us.